to our second live stream from what you've been looking for. We're talking this week about positivity and whether you need to think yourself happy. There's obviously been a lot of stuff out there, content, conversations, since particularly since isolation, but it was around before all that. It's just really more obvious now about having to think positive about the situation, when in the midst of despair we try and think our way out of it. So we're going to get into that today. Please join in. So if you're here watching, thank you very much. If you'd like to ask any questions or share your experiences while we're live, then that would be really amazing. We can Gary will be keeping an eye on that as we go through the conversation. And yeah, we're just going to explore together, and then this will be there here on the YouTube channel for you to watch at your leisure, and it'll be going out in the podcast tomorrow. So let's get stuck in. Gary, Natalie, so, what do you reckon?
Do we need to think positively to be happy? I always feel these, like, we have these questions, and at the beginning of it, it's like the shortest podcast ever, because the answer to that is no. And then what are we going to say now? No, you don't need to. Depends on what happen. What is happiness? I mean, should we start there? That's the problem, isn't it? That's not the problem. I always say that. Is your idea of what is happiness is something that exists in thinking and always in the future. So
which comes back to seeking, which is sometimes subtle, sometimes really strong. And you could argue that the whole self-help industry is built on the concept of happiness being one step away from this moment. So it can look very enticing that positive thinking and affirmations are a route to that. And it's not to say that I don't think they're inherently bad. That's the thing. That's why it's quite a tricky one to discuss, because there's nothing wrong with thinking positive, but understanding, like you say, there's a bigger exploration around what is that and what are we trying to get to.
Yeah, it is that illusion that happiness is over there, not here. And for as long as we think it's over there, it makes perfect sense to think positive thoughts, or buy the lipstick, or buy the car, or eat more cake, or drink more beer, because once I've done that, then I'll be happy. So it's and it is that misunderstanding, because a mind that says you'll be happy when you're there inevitably will go chasing for the thing that will make it happy. And it's kind of, but it's also like really cool, because then when you eventually get tired of that and you realize that it's not reliable, like I can't positive think my way out of this one, that's brilliant, because then you go, well now what? Because it's not working. And that's when something new opens up, like this conversation. And you can see some.
I think we get so preoccupied with thought content. By that I mean, like, what is it I am thinking about? It looks very much like the about bit is the really important bit. That's the bit we fixate on, because we think that that's the bit will change our state of mind. But there's this higher perspective, or a broader perspective, that recognizes that thought content changes. It's fluid. It's completely mercurial and transient. So how can we ever manipulate it? How can we ever try and change its form? Because once it's done, it's out there. And that's the interesting thing about things like, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It just, for some people, it's really valid and very helpful, and I've had it, and it's helpful to a degree. But ultimately, you're trying to manipulate a form that's already taken its form. So isn't there a bigger exploration around what's the nature of thought, which I know goes deep, but this is really the kind of conversation we're more interested in.
Well, yeah, because in the absence of that, you're in it. You're just in the waves, aren't you? And if you're in the waves, then, and if you think you need to be on an up wave, then as soon as you think you're in a down wave, you're going to be seeking the up. But then as soon as you're on the up, you're going to be fearful that there's going to be another down. So there's no just no peace or freedom in that, because neither state is seemingly okay. So yeah, when you're talking about looking at the nature of thought, it's like dropping beneath all the waves of happy, sad, good, bad, and seeing, oh yeah, waves just wave. Like they're going to do that. Sorry, Gary, you were going to say something before.
I don't know, was I?
Looked like it.
I don't know. There's always, maybe it's a point of conflict in is, I think the thing about positive thinking is that it requires an action, and the place where I am at the moment is getting stuck with, okay, who's doing the action? And so, I mean, there seems to be a method to think something, to think about something. So there seems to be a way for me to think about something. Right, I want to think about how do I solve this problem in the present moment? How do I plan something in the future? How do I do things? So it does seem that there's a mechanism for thought to take form and it to be created with a set of an intent. But I'm still sometimes thinking, well, is who's doing the thinking? And then to know a happy thought, I have to know what unhappiness is. So I'm already then defining it by the polarity. So it's I have to think happy, then I've already defined what is unhappy. So this is a happy thought, this isn't a happy thought. This is a positive outlook, this isn't a positive outlook. And then straight away I'm into this dualistic world of that's better than this, and what I've got now isn't better than what I think I'm going to have in the future. And so it just seems to take energy out of me if I start to think about things in a positive way. But that's not to say that sometimes you don't think about things in a positive way, because when you're in the moment facing a situation and it seems like it's going to be a disaster, then there is benefit to going, oh, maybe I just need to take a different perspective on this right now. Maybe I need to look at it have a different perspective that's not so doom and gloom. But that's not really about trying to make yourself happy. That's just about taking a different perspective and seeing things as they are rather than seeing things as you think they are.
What I really hear in that, though, is that the naturalness of that last one you described versus, and I think we've used the phrase reverse engineering on this before, but versus the reverse engineering of positive thinking, which is the mind that has said not this, trying to layer on top a thought that says that would be better. How can I get there? And I've lost my thread of thought. Yeah, and that's the reverse engineering. That's the like trying to make the nice experience, which the mind knows is available because it's seen it, but it doesn't know how to get there. All it knows to do is keep turning round and round, going, I remember there was a time I was happy, and so maybe if I think happy stuff, then happiness will be here again. And what you're saying in that, what I hear in that, is the natural design of the system is for buoyancy, is for coming back up to the surface with a fresh idea or a fresh thought or a different perspective. But it's not manufactured, it's just innate. And the minute we try and manufacture it through a positivity journal or 3 good things or gratitude practices or hopeful futures, we're just trying to reverse engineer what's innate and what's natural, and actually layering more into the system, which then locks the system up. And yeah, it's like fixed reality, happiness, unhappiness, and then layer of trying to fight our way out of a paper bag that we just created for ourselves.
So would you say that there's no benefit to gratitude practices then?
It's not a causal factor to living a happy life. So sometimes you could practice gratitude and you could go, oh my God, I feel full of love now, I'm full of positivity now, I'm going to go and do good deeds. But on another day, it could have no effect. And on a third day, you could remain completely grumpy and negative it might seem to make you feel grumpy. Like there's no truth in a gratitude practice makes you a good person or a happy person, because it's not causal. It's another reverse engineering. I see. It's another. If it occurs to you on a day to practice some gratitude, then practice some gratitude. Same as I see, like I was talking to a client earlier about meditation. Meditation can become like, oh, I'll be okay when I've got a peaceful mind because I've done all this meditation. I'll be okay when I'm full of gratitude because I've filled in all my gratitude journals. It's like it can just become another chase, versus having a toolkit of stuff where on one day it might occur to you to write some gratitude stuff down. Fine, do that. On another day it might occur to meditate. Fine, do that. And we get lost when we think that these things of form are the answer and somehow causing us a certain experience, because it's never that way around.
Yeah. Go on then, sorry, Nat.
I was just going to say, it sounds to me that feels like what I would describe as, when I talk about little me, the idea of me, the ego, that feels it's in control, that, you know, thinks it's living this life, when actually life is living us. We are being lived. We just don't think we are. Therefore, this notion of around, well, I need to control my thinking, because if I don't control my thinking, then what's going to happen? And that's, for me, is what makes these parameters of must think positive, because goodness knows if I don't do that, I'm just going to, you know, loll in negativity all the time, because we don't recognize that when we let go of this idea into a natural, which we all do from time to time, we're not always aware, we slip into this true nature or beingness, and then we recognize that those states fluctuate anyway, and like you said, we will naturally come back to a buoyancy state. So why do we need to keep trying to get in there and, you know, try and manage it and intervene? And it's actually, paradoxically, I see that the more I try and intervene with the process, the harder it becomes, the more my mood drops, because I'm like, come on, I need to feel better.
But it's almost like what's going to happen is going to happen anyway. So where the point of tension is coming from is the thing that believes it exists, the ego or the character, then gets itself into a mess, because what's happening is happening anyway, and then the thought about it is in complete polarity. It's like, well, this happened, and then I'm having a load of thinking about it, and I'm generating all this thought about this thing that's already happened, that was always going to happen anyway and has happened. And so I didn't get up and do my gratitude practice. Oh my God, I didn't do my gratitude practice. That means X, that means Y. Oh, I didn't do my meditation practice. That means X, and that means Y. And I wrote a blog post on it recently, because it had been coming up in conversations with people at the same time, where I've been saying, the practice will never wake you up. The practice will never get you to a point of understanding who you truly are. But equally doesn't mean that practices aren't important. So it's always this paradox between, but it's oh, I'm believing that I need to do this thing to get X. I need to think positively to get X. And so if I just think positively, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to get the perfect job. I'm going to get the perfect life. I'm going to get the perfect car. I'm going to get all this money in my bank account. And it's just coming from this, I need to do this all the time.
Well, yeah, because so I used to do 3 good things. That was I don't know if there's a hashtag on Twitter, 3 good things, to share daily if you want to. And I used to do that, and it's a nice thing. Like it's not a not to do, as with all these things. And you said at the start, Nat, this is the difficulty of it, isn't it? Because it's like, it's knowing that those things aren't an answer or a salve or a salvation of some kind, but it's also not doing them. Because for me, I could say, well, I can see how doing that 3 good things and kind of looking at positive psychology all those years ago could have been part of what's brought me to this today. Like, I could never know.
Yeah.
It could have been part of my stepping stones that led me to see through it all, and then be able to say, yeah, we don't need it, but kind of had to go through that journey to then come out the other side and see the whole thing. Who knows? Like, we can't know. So it is that thing of, yeah, we don't need to think ourselves happy, but we don't need to not think ourselves happy too.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying is this, that whatever you're doing is what you're doing, and the outcome of that is going to be the outcome of that. And you know, you might find yourself doing gratitude practices, and you might find yourself trying to practice positive thinking as part of the process of working out who you really are, and coming back to your true nature, and seeing that, oh, I'm not my thinking, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not the story I tell myself, I'm the space that it all happens in. But you know, that's again, it comes to this belief that it's going to get you somewhere, that you're going to achieve happiness from doing that thing, when happiness is the thing that already resides here. It's never in the object or the circumstance or the thinking about something. It's beyond that. It's the thing that's already present. Which also doesn't mean that you're not, you know, I think, sorry, no, I was just going to say, there's this belief that you can't, you know, that suddenly that you become this sort of happy mystical unicorn that's prancing around the room happy all the time, and there's not anger, there's not frustration, and there's not human emotion in the moment, because obviously there is. And we can't be happy all the time, because happy is a momentarily fleeting emotion that passes through the body, and it will come and it will go, and you can't keep that state all the time, because the body can't keep a state all the time. It's constantly changing, it's constantly moving, it's constantly unfolding, and it's almost like the river flows through you, and at some points, you know, it's up and it's down and there's rapids, and at some point, like yesterday, it was like, for me, I was in this kind of really still stagnant pool, like a whirlpool, and it was just like, I can't get out of this, but I didn't do anything to try and get out of it. It was just, okay, we'll just need to leave it. And it's showing up, and I'm watching it, and it's barking at people, and it's just not being very pleasant. And okay, well, that's how it is.
But I think that's quite an unusual, not an unusual view, but for many people, I think there is this, it could be quite subtle, it could be quite clear, this sense of trying to reach this happiness, because society tells us that other emotions aren't quite valid, or that there's some kind of hierarchy of emotions, aren't there, that whether that's perceived or not, in that people feel a bit guilty about feeling sad, about feeling loss, about feeling loneliness, or whatever those things are. And therefore we either fight them or we deny them, because we think that if we do that, we'll get to that happy place. But actually, it's completely the reverse. It's allowfulness. That's a term that I use all the time, because it feels free to me. Like, because it is energetic, let's let this energy come through and not be frightened of it, because it's all completely fine. It's all part of the experience. And it's only then, when you really let go, that you can actually find ease amidst quite difficult emotions.
Yeah. Is there a distinction in that between, because you're saying, Gary, about happiness being that fleeting experience versus connecting into who we really are? Because some people would say, oh, happiness is happiness is happiness, versus saying there's a distinction between the contentment of and that alivefulness of who or what we really are, which then allows there to be anything on the screen of life. So it could be happiness, it could be sadness, it could be despair, it could be joy. And so would you distinguish the background experience? Because some would say that background experience is, which could be called contentment, is actually happiness. And all that happens is it gets covered over by the stories of the ego, which make it seem like there is a lack of happiness, make it seem like there is a lack of okayness.
Again, we're using,
that's just sitting there.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. The thing is, we're using language to describe something that can't be described, and happiness is as good a term as it for anything, but it's also been termed bliss, joy, serenity, equanimity, peace, silence, void, emptiness, you know, whatever you want to call it. And the experience of it is still not it, because the experience is still just an echo of what it is. So, it's this preconceived idea of, like, to know happiness, I have to know unhappiness. So I've already defined what happiness is, and I can't know something that I don't know. And so I've defined unhappiness, and I've defined happiness, and I have these two things. And so I was like, well, it must be this then, this thing that they're talking about. It must be this, what I think is happiness, and this belief and this concept and model I've got about it. So that's what it must be. And I don't seem to have that. And it's like, well, you do. You haven't got anything that we haven't got. You've already got it, because you are it. Yeah, and this is always where we fall down, when we try to talk about and describe it, because I can't talk about and describe it in any way that makes sense to people, because it doesn't make sense to me. either. So it's a knowing, it's an understanding, it's a even in the bowels of a really kind of uncomfortable experience at the moment, I can't say for the future, but at the moment there's still a knowing of who I really am and what's really going on. So there's no identification with it. And I think that's maybe the thing, isn't it, we're talking about? There's no identification with the experience and the body and the mind and the thinking. Thoughts happen and they're transient and they pass through us, and one inherently is not any better than the other. And I like what you're saying, Nat, about is also the dark side of it. We have to go look at that side of our thinking and see that it's there, and see that it, that kind of thing exists. And I don't know about you, but in my dark times in my life I've had some horrendous thinking about myself and about other people, and horrendous kind of, if I were to say it out loud, people wouldn't be around. Because it's been that bad at some points.
But I think what you're saying about identification is absolutely the crux of it. Because I mean, I have worked with people who have quite intrusive thoughts, like the kind that you've just been talking about, and they would deem to be something you can't even voice because it's too shameful to say it. But when we have a conversation about, you don't own that thought, you didn't conjure up that thought, that thinking comes through. It's only when you say, that is me thinking that thought, that it has an implication about who you are. Whereas when you see that it's happening and that you don't have to even look at it or cling on to it, it can happen, you don't have to stop it from happening. That's where the freedom lies. And I think there's this real misunderstanding around the fact that I've got to get rid of that in order to be okay. It's the same with anxiety. No, you can experience anxiety but still find freedom. It doesn't mean you're going to not ever have a panic attack again, although I've been reminded of that quite recently. And we fall into it. I had the whole, oh God, I didn't think this was going to happen again to me. But that's just another thought, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's that fixedness, isn't it? Because it can also be the fixedness of, if there are those bad thoughts or negative thoughts, it's like it can be so consuming. It's all that. So if I've had a bad thought about someone, well, all consuming, I'm a bad person. Or a conversation with somebody recently was, I've had such a bad week, but actually when we paused and looked at it, and what appeared was, oh yeah, I got through that challenge because this idea came and that idea came, and oh yeah, and that which would normally have been really difficult with my boss actually wasn't, because I saw the thinking that was coming that I would normally follow, and I didn't follow it. I know there wasn't really an I following it, but let's just go with that. I didn't follow it, and then it was a different conversation, and we had a normal human discussion without me feeling like I was incapable. And all this, what had previously looked like fixed, definite, solid, bad week, suddenly was like, oh my God, full of brilliance and full of joy and full of huge variance. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? We kind of fixate onto it must all be happy, and therefore we have to resist and avoid all the bad, and we've got these two very distinct separate boxes, and we think that we're it. We think, yeah, we're doing it all. And yeah, I mean, gosh, talking to her and saying, yeah, did you notice how you didn't make yourself think? You didn't use a strategy to go, stop thinking that about your boss. It just occurred to you. You're not doing any of it. It was so much easier than we've ever made out. And that's where I kind of pull out from gratitude journals and things, because the minute we start to make those a thing, a practice, a strategy to be okay, we're lost. We're back in fixed. I must do this or else I'll not be all right.
Yeah, we're back in identification with something.
Yeah.
And whenever because I do have an urge sometimes, I just watch another YouTube, or just listen to this, or just see my quotes. I know now that that's a little flag going, you're in insecure thinking. That's what's going on here. I might still do it, but that awareness is really helpful to know that that's a red flag to say I've just fallen out of alignment a little bit. That's fine.
That's that thing I kind of talk about, like when we're so attached, it's like this, and just even that tiny bit of space, isn't it, to see, oh look, I'm chasing that happy feeling again by watching another YouTube. Oh, okay, then see what happens. And either we keep watching or we don't. Doesn't matter, does it? It's way pulling out of the behaviour, way pulling out of the form of activity. So before all that.
Yeah, and that's when I first started to understand the phrase getting out of my own way. I didn't really understand that when I first heard it, because I was like, what? How can I get in my own way? But for me, that comes back to the idea of thinking that I'm running the ship and that I'm steering this whole thing, and recognizing that when I let go of that thinking, that it naturally emerges anyway, and all the wisdom is already there. It's already there to be uncovered, and that's incredible. When you first see that, it's yeah.
Yeah, and the brilliant reliability of it. Like, yeah, all the ideas, all the, like you said before, Gary, all the possible positivity that could naturally appear in a difficult situation, it'll be there the minute we stop trying to look for it and stop trying to make it be there.
Yeah.
So would you guys see hope the same? Like, I've seen lots recently about, oh gosh, it's so horrible right now, but we can hope for a better future, and we can look to a positive future and a happier future.
God, no, hope is a
big reaction. Whoa, there's
Tell us what you think about hope.
If your name is Hope, I'm not having a go at you, but
but you are.
No, yeah, it's just it's, hold on a second, just give me a moment to see what comes up about it. Hope is kind of like a false, hope is just false. It's just yeah. I mean, I hope things turn out okay. And one level, that's fine. I can, yeah, I hope things turn out okay. But I kind of know that they're going to be all okay anyway. But hope can very quickly become something that leads you down to despair, because again, it's this point of the dichotomy, is that to know hope, I need to know despair. And unhappy, they're at they feel like they're at different levels. I can see why for people, they feel that they're at different levels. And so to know hope, I need to know despair. And, it's me pushing against that despair and not seeing the despair at the same time. And I also understand why people that might listen to this conversation will react against this, but it's perfect as it is. And it's always been perfect as it is. And it can't be anything other than perfect as it is. So the wanting it to be different than it is just going to keep leading you down this path of struggle and suffering. And the hope one is probably one of the ones that I see that takes you further into suffering than anything else, because you've got to know the despair to know hope, and then you're staying in the despair if you're trying to be in the hope all the time, and it's just going to drag you back the other way, if that makes any sense. So hope, I don't, and I say but and it's not a recommendation again, but I wouldn't go to hope. I would never think about hoping for the best, because it's always going to turn out okay. And that, though, doesn't mean that events are going to turn out in the way that you think that they will turn out to make you happy. Sometimes, I hope my father wasn't going to die, and he did. And I know I was only 9 years old, but if I see now that if I'd been, if I knew both sides of the coin, maybe it would have been different. I don't know, but it's this keep dreaming for something that's just not going to happen, and yet putting everything into it.
That could sound really, really hard for someone who's in the pits of despair.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Right now.
If you are in the pits of despair right now, let me just say that, I have all the compassion for you, and I have all the love for you. And I really would want to be able to help you in some way, but hope is not going to get you out of anything. It's going to keep you stuck to where you are right now.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that, but that was it.
No, it's so true. It's so true, and in the truth of the message, absolutely, the identity can react against it because it's breaking the story that it's held to be its salvation. It's believed that its story is the "I'll be okay" even when that story sucks sometimes. So even if holding to that story does sometimes lead to despair, it could still be held on to because it doesn't know anything else.
Yeah.
And so I guess what we are pointing to here is that there is something else. What we're not saying is that it requires hope or positive thinking to get there. It's already here. It's innate with everything and every experience you've ever had. And for anybody who's been in an experience of depression or difficulty, there will have been a moment of clarity that said, yeah, come on now, different, let's do something different, let's get up today, let's have a shower today, whatever that thing was, that glimmer that said, yeah, not this, not now. And things shifted and things changed, and then yeah, a different experience happens. And it's looking to that which was never from the thinking that said, let's be hopeful.
Yeah. Whew.
I was just thinking then, which could make the debate even more interesting.
Why not? In for a penny, in for a pound. Let's go for it.
There's lots of nuance around interpretation of certain words. People will have their own understanding of word and what it means, and therefore might be more protective of things. And thinking about like trust and hope, for me, maybe there's something around hope that suggests that it's not here now, so we need something new to happen. And then trust is perhaps more about uncovering what already is. Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted by a daughter. I didn't hear a word.
Yeah. This is one of the benefits of working from home, isn't it?
Hello, are you joining the call? You want those? Carry on, guys.
I want to hear what you said.
We'll just take a small break. For those of you listening on the podcast, Natalie's daughter just walked into the room.
Yeah.
So you were saying about hope and trust.
Yeah, and I think this is what we've said before about uncovering versus acquiring. And for me, hope is around acquisition of something I don't have that I think is outside of me and beyond me, whereas trust, or whatever word we want to use, is an uncovering of what already is innate. And that for me is a really important difference.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. I guess all of this conversation is that, isn't it? What we're inviting here is that revelation. It's the revealing of what's already available, only hidden by our ideas of it should be like that instead, and only hidden by I can't say that phrase, by our ideas of what happiness is, that we need to hope for something other than how it is right now. And without those ideas, which are constructs, they're made up, because my idea of happiness is different to each of yours. There's no truth in any of that. And so it's in the dissolving of those that then that brilliance that's already there is revealed. And then that's that knowing, like you said, Gary, that sits there in the background, irrespective of what's happening in the foreground.
So often hope can lead to inaction, can't it? It's we hope this situation is get better, so we won't do anything. And often when hope, like I say, when hope is showing up in its purest form, it's the contrast to despair. And so you're really saying, well, I'm in despair and I hope it's going to get better. It's like, when you're in despair, and it's seeing the truth that, I'm in despair, and I have to do something. I have to get out of this despair somehow, and I can't stay in despair. I hope it's going to get better. And I go back to, just from my own experience of mental health and suicide ideation and things like that, when I was really, really dark, I did get out of it by using hope. I got out of it by going through it and being with it and working through it and working on myself and looking at it and exploring it and whatever it had to do it to get out of it. And hope for me, I think I was just a particularly bad reaction against it personally, because here it's been a very the experience of it has been something that I wouldn't want other people to go through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That phrase, giving people false hope, just came to mind.
Yeah.
There's actually no true hope, is there?
No. It's just this, and this is enough, because it's all of it. So it can't be anything more than that. It's just like, I'm this, it's everything, I'm all of this, and that's what we're pointing towards, and that has a bigger, more profound feeling than anything else. And so knowing that, you know that you're okay, because I'm all of this. So I don't really need to hope for anything.
Yeah.
And then comes the freedom to do everything.
Yeah.
And you can hope, and you can positive think, and you can be despairing, and you can take all the action.
Yeah.
Or you can sit on your sofa doing nothing, and it's like it's all allowed and it's all perfect.
Exactly.
But it's not all zen all the time as well. I think there's kind of this idea that in awakening or seeing your true nature, then you're suddenly going to be in this state of bliss all the time. But going back to what we said before, that's not a natural human experience, is it?
No.
It's being open to the fluctuation and know that the ebb and flow is completely fine.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's your true nature, isn't it? Is the ebb and flow of the experience. Is that the human has the human being is ebbing and flowing, and it has an experience, and it's reacting to, it's got its conditioning, and it's reacting to circumstances and environments around it, and it's the allowance of all that okay, and it's in the allowance of it and the non-judgmental space of it, when you are just conscious awareness, and you're just sitting as conscious awareness, and you're in that space. Conscious awareness, it doesn't need to think itself happy, because it just is. It doesn't need to employ any tools or tactics or strategies to make itself happy, because it just is. It's neither happy or unhappy. It's just, I'm just experience happening. I'm just the perceiving happening, and that doesn't need to do anything to reach anything or go anywhere. And then in the allowance of the true nature is that it comes out, and you start to see patterns, you start to see your behavior, and the patterns that will need to go will go, and you'll move away from things that you don't want in your life, and other stuff will come back into it. But it doesn't mean that, like you say, we're not angry, we're not frustrated, and those emotions even turn up even more now than they used to, because there's no kind of trying to hold on to them and push them away. It's like, in the moment you're angry, okay, I'm angry, done, move through it, next thing.
It sounds so terrible, doesn't it? I remember earlier in this experience people saying that about, in fact it was when I started meditating, so before I'd even found this stuff, and the meditation teacher saying you'll get more sensitive, and she says, I know it's a terrible sales tool, but you'll get more sensitive, you'll experience more emotion. I remember at the time, from my very controlled, organized, that really did sound terrible. And there's obviously something in it that still led me towards it, and I bit by bit it's like, more sensitivity, and it's so counter again to what we think, because we've been trained so much to box and control and keep our emotions in check, and we think that's the right way to be. But oh my god, the labor and the effort required to do that, and the psychological effort to carry this stuff around with us, and remember, I must be like this and I mustn't be like that, and look how terrible they were, so I'll add that to my sack of stuff to carry. And it's just, it grows and grows, and it's so huge, and you don't even realize how constrained and constricted you've become, and how much energy you are expending on trying to just walk this narrow path of what's apparently right and good and acceptable. So it's so counterintuitive to what we've always been told, that in this greater sensitivity and the greater allowing of this is what's here now, it's all the integrity and honesty we've ever been looking for. It's all the freedom we've ever been looking for, and And it's in that flow of it, isn't it, that then we don't waste energy, you know, mulling this grudge over for 10 days before we actually say something to the person. We just say, no, that's not okay. And it's done and it's dealt with, and we move on and we do something else. It's that thing of coming back to being childlike in the letting go of stuff. But now, rather than being children, we're coming at it with this whole toolbox of other experiences and knowledge, and so it's the same and so different.
Yeah, and coming back to positive thinking, there's a lot of energy invested in positive thinking for a variable outcome, you know, whatever that might be. Sometimes you might feel better, sometimes you might not, because ultimately you're resisting a natural expression, and therefore it's going to be inauthentic and it's going to take a lot of energy. So you do find a lot of people who say, God, it's just so exhausting having to do like affirmations in front of the mirror every day and not believe it. And, you know, it's hard work. And if it's hard work, then I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's authentic, does it?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it's the same with the gratitude journaling. You know, at some point you're like, really, am I really grateful for this coffee? It's just coffee. You know, it's not life changing. It might be nice, you know, and it becomes trite and plastic a little bit, and you know, it's not real. It's just like, well, just be grateful, you know, just for it. It's just like, wow, I'm given this experience. This is it. It's not going to be anything else. You know, not to get contentious, but there isn't anything else. This is it. You know, there's nothing else going on. It's this or nothing. And being in that space of, oh, this is all of it, and I can be grateful for all of it. The gratitude has a certain realness to it that I don't need to think positively to know that's there. And I just had a thought, you know, the thing about thinking positively, because they measure it and they go, oh yes, we've got 10 people and they thought positively for 10 weeks and now they've measured it's like, you know, probably you believe that you have to, you know, when you go to that test, you're like, well, I've been thinking positively for 10 weeks, so I must be happier now. Let's tick the box, you know, that I'm happier now because I've been doing the action. And it's just, again, you're denying the reality of the situation again, that, you know, in the moment you might not be happy, or
probably from this, it's probably an invitation for people, if they are practicing some kind of gratitude or positive affirmation practice or any kind of positive thinking, is just to start getting curious about it and start to see really where there's not a causal link. So see how, whatever that positive practice is, see how it doesn't always lead to a positive thought or a positive experience. And although that's never what we're normally told to do, that is actually the direction of freedom.
Yes.
That is the direction of seeing that the story that's been tried to be held as so fixed and true has only allowed in the information that said, oh yes, look, this positive thinking really works. And it's only when we start to loosen the grip of that story that we then allow in the information that says, well, actually, you did that positive thinking stuff that time and that made zero difference. Or actually it got worse. And where we've resisted that stuff for so long, now in the allowing of it, that's the route to freedom. That's the route to real happiness, that background contented happiness. Because it's all allowed here.
Graham
just said positive thinking is almost its own industry. It's not almost, it is its own industry.
And it's a very, very potent industry because it keeps us fixed in seeking, therefore it's going to work. It's like consumerism, isn't it? If you believe that what you need is outside of you, you will keep paying for it and doing it.
The psychological version of the lipstick or the car or the beer or the cake.
It's just, you know, I need to think myself happy. It's like, well, if I could think myself happy, I would have done it a long time ago.
Yes.
We'd all be doing it. It'd be like, oh yeah, if I could just think myself happy. It's the same thing with anything. If I could think myself to have a nice big house and a car and the perfect life, then surely that would have happened. But it hasn't, so it can't work. But we don't want to believe it because it challenges the idea of ourself. And essentially that's what we're trying to do, really, is challenge the idea of yourself. It's like, you know, what is that self? You know, who is it that needs to think that they're happy? Is it this idea, this story of you that you're living in that experience of that thinking, or is there something else going on? And is there some, you know, is there a deeper truth that's there that you can rest in and find that says, oh, okay, well, I don't need all those stories, the things to be happy. That doesn't mean that I'm not angry in the moment. And that's the paradox that people can't get sometimes. I'm not, sometimes I'm sad and depressed, and sometimes I feel, it's like, I don't want to get up today. Still doesn't mean I'm not at peace.
Yeah. Nice. Anything else on the chat there, Gary?
No, not yet. Well, can I ask for a question if anybody's got a question? Anybody else got other questions they would like us to talk about on the chat? It's like we take a superposition now because we're slightly behind the YouTube stream. So we're in the past and they're in the future.
We're all done now. And
it's like, that blows your mind a little bit. Hold on a second. But it all seems to be happening at the same time. I don't know what's going on. See. If not.
I appreciate you being here again, Graham.
Yes, thank you, Ray. Yeah. Our fan. That's it. Nothing coming forth yet.
Okay.
So, have we killed positive thinking? Have we knocked it into the long grass? No one's going to positive think anymore.
And they will.
And they will, yeah. Of course we will, because that's what we do.
Yeah, I think from this, it's just like invitation to get curious, isn't it? Test out what's been held as so fixed and definite. Start to put the edges a bit. Start to, just test what's actually happening in your experience, rather than what you've been told or what you've believed. And know that is the true peace and freedom we've been looking for. Never been in the activity. In the activity,
or the tool, or the strategy, or the tactics. It always comes back just to being in the direct experience of life. It's just like, go back to your direct experience. Go back to who you are before you start putting thinking on things. And that's it, really. There's nothing else other than that. And it's the simplicity I think people miss of it. It's like, oh, it can't be that simple, can it? Yes, it is that simple.
Hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, it's hiding in plain sight. It's the again, we said it before, it's a joke. It's like, oh, you just mean this. Yes, just this. Oh, okay. Can't be this. It has to be something else.
Because the mind likes complexity, though, doesn't it? Far too simple, it doesn't like it.
No, exactly.
Well, yes, and if there's nothing I can do.
Yeah. Then I'm no longer irrelevant.
Oh yeah, you're irrelevant.
Cool.
Good. So it's a wrap. So next week we're talking about losing your job, aren't we? What's the full title? I haven't got the full title.
Do you remember
something around,
I think it's around job security and
job
whether
security.
you're really, then the meaning that we make out of that.
Yes, which I think is going to be important for a lot of people at the moment, because we are going to see a lot of people going to be losing their jobs, which is going to be a very upsetting and traumatic thing for a lot of people. So we'll be talking about that job security and just seeing whether your well-being is tied in having job security, or is it something you always had or not. We'll see where that one goes. But thank you very much for joining us, everybody, and the people that joined us on the live stream as well. Thank you for spending your time with us, and we shall speak and hopefully hear from you next week. If anybody has any questions, or if anybody's got anything they would like us to talk about, maybe that's one we can put out there. Please do get in contact. You can reach us through the website, which is whatyou'vebeenlookingfor.com, on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, and individually as well. All our contact details are always in the YouTube channel, in the description, and all over the internet. I'm sure if you just Google one of us, you'll find us. But other than that, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for joining us live, and we'll speak to you all next week. So, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.